I'm 84 years old and my phone doesn't ring much anymore. That's not a complaint. I stopped waiting for it to ring about 2 years ago, somewhere around the time I realized that waiting was its own kind of answer. My son lives in Phoenix. My daughter is in Toronto. I know their addresses. I know their children's names, their birthdays, though I've missed most of those birthdays in recent years, not because I forgot, because somewhere along the way I became someone they call on holidays. And even then, not always. I used to tell myself they were busy. That's true. They are busy. But I've had enough years now to know that busy is not the whole story. The whole story is harder to say out loud. I'm going to try anyway, because I don't have so many years left that I can afford to keep not saying it. I was a good provider. I want to say that not as a defense, but as a fact, because it matters to understanding everything that came after. My father was not a good provider. We grew up with real scarcity, not the kind people talk about now as character building, but the kind where my mother cried in the kitchen over bills. I swore I would never put a family through that. I kept that promise. I worked hard enough that my kids never knew that kind of worry. Never once. What they knew instead was a father who left early and came home late. My wife, Margaret, she held everything together while I worked. She drove them to school, helped with homework, sat at the dinner table while I sat at my desk. I told myself I was doing it for them. I believed that completely. For most of my working life, I never questioned it. There's a particular kind of blindness that comes from being convinced you're doing the right thing. It protects you from seeing what you're actually doing. When my son was around 7 or 8, he went through a phase where he was obsessed with model trains. He'd spend hours on the floor of his room building layouts, reading the little catalogues that came in the mail. He used to leave them on my desk sometimes, folded to a page, a certain locomotive circled in pen. I noticed. I thought it was sweet. I bought him a train set one Christmas, a good one. I made sure of that. I remember feeling satisfied about it, like I'd paid attention. What I didn't do was sit on the floor with him and build it. He never asked me to. Kids learn not to ask for things they've already figured out they won't get. That's one of those things you only understand looking back. When the child is a grown man, you're having stilted phone calls with twice a year. I missed his first school play. I missed my daughter's graduation from 8th grade. I was there for the big graduations, high school, college, because by then I knew those were the ones that were photographed, the ones with speeches and dinners after, but the smaller ones, the Tuesday afternoon recitals, the Saturday morning soccer games in the cold, those I largely missed. I told myself they understand, kids understand. They don't, or rather, they understand, and then they adjust. They stop expecting you. And once a child stops expecting you, something shifts that doesn't shift back. I didn't know that then. I know it now at 84, sitting in this house that is very quiet. Margaret was patient with me for most of our marriage, patient in a way I mistook for contentment. She wasn't unhappy exactly. She loved her children, she had her friends, she had a life she'd built largely without me at the center of it. I think she'd made a kind of peace with who I was. We were married for 51 years before she died. Heart attack 4 years ago. Very fast. She was there in the morning and gone by evening. No warning that I saw, though the doctors said the signs had been there. After she died, I waited for my children to call more. I understood they had their own grief, but I think I thought that loss would pull us back together, that it would clarify something. It did clarify something, just not what I expected. What became clear slowly was that my children had not lost one parent. They had lost the parent who had been present. I was still here, technically, but I was a near stranger to them in many of the ways that matter. I remember a conversation with my daughter about 8 months after Margaret died. She'd flown in to help me sort through some things, and we were going through boxes in the basement, and she found a folder of drawings she'd made as a child. Little crayon things, suns with faces, houses with smoke coming out of chimneys. She looked through them quietly, and then she said, "Mom kept all of these." I said, "Of course she did." And there was a pause, and she said, "Did you know she kept them?" I said I supposed I did, generally. She didn't say anything else about it, but I understood what the question really was. She was asking whether I had known, whether I had cared, whether I had ever bent down and looked at a crayon drawing and felt something move in my chest. The honest answer is that I don't remember. That's the worst part of it. Not that I didn't care. I think I did care in some general way, but I don't remember. The specific moments are gone, and my children remember what I've forgotten, and what they remember is mostly absence. My son and I have talked about this once directly. About 2 years ago, he came alone to visit without his wife or the kids, and we went out to dinner, and he said something I've thought about almost every day since. He said, "Dad, I don't have a lot of memories of you from when I was growing up. I have memories of Mom. I have memories of the house, but you're mostly just not in them." He wasn't angry when he said it. That would have been easier. He said it the way you say something that's been true for so long it's lost its charge. Just a fact, just the shape of a life. I sat there and I didn't know what to say, because there was nothing to say. He was right. I had been there in the legal, financial sense. I had been present in the ways I understood presence at the time, but I was not in the memories. And now I am old, and Margaret is gone, and my children are polite to me, and that's what's left. Here is what I want to say to you. Whoever you are, whatever age you are right now, I am not telling you that work is bad. I am not telling you that providing for your family is wrong. Those things matter. I know they matter, but I spent the better part of 30 years making a choice every single day without knowing I was making it. I chose the version of fatherhood that could be measured. Income, security, Christmas presents bought from catalogues. I thought presents were something you gave in the large moments, the graduations and the holidays. I didn't understand that presents is mostly made up of ordinary Tuesday afternoons. I thought I had more time. I always thought there would be a phase where things slowed down and I would step back into their lives in a fuller way. That phase never came, or rather it came after I retired, but by then they were adults with their own lives and I was a person they didn't quite know, and the window had closed in ways I couldn't see until I was standing outside of it. My granddaughter is 9 years old. She lives in Toronto with her mother, my daughter. I see her once a year, maybe twice. She's polite to me in the way children are polite to relatives they don't know well. I watch my son-in-law with her sometimes when I visit. He coaches her soccer team. He's there on Tuesday afternoons. He makes breakfast on Saturday mornings and leaves little notes in her lunchbox. I don't say anything about it. I just watch, and I think she will remember him. She will carry him inside her whole life. He is being built into her daily the way parents are built into children when they show up. That is not a small thing. I understand that now. My phone didn't ring on my birthday this year. My daughter sent a text, a kind one with a photo of my granddaughter holding a little sign. My son called 2 days late and apologized, and I told him it was fine, and it was fine because you reach an age where you stop being able to be surprised by the distances between people. I am not angry at my children. I want to be clear about that. They are not cruel. They are people who grew up with a father who wasn't quite there, and they found ways to be fine, and now they have their own lives and their own children, and I am a man they check in on because he is old and lives alone. That's what it is. That's what it adds up to. I have good days. I read. I go for walks when my knees let me. I have a neighbor who comes over on Thursdays and we play cards and talk about nothing particular, and those Thursday afternoons are some of the best hours of my week. I'm telling you that because I don't want you to think this is only a story about misery. It's not. Life is not only misery. Even when you've made the mistakes I've made, there is still warmth in things. There is still the afternoon light through the window, the smell of coffee, the sound of birds. But there is also this, a kind of loneliness that is specifically shaped by the people who are still alive, who are reachable, who you could call. And you know when you pick up the phone that you are calling across a distance that you built slowly over decades and that it cannot be fully crossed now. That's the kind of loneliness I'm talking about. If you are young or in the middle of your life and there is someone you keep meaning to call them. Not because I'm telling you to, because time does something that you can't see from inside it. It passes in a way that feels gradual until you look back and realize It was actually very fast. The Tuesday afternoon you let go, you will not get it back. That's not a threat, it's just true. I wish someone had said it plainly to me when I was 35 and certain I was doing everything right. I was doing everything I thought was right. That's the hardest part of it. I'm 84. I have some time left, maybe. Not a lot. I'm not afraid of it the way I used to think I'd be afraid of it. What I am is clear in a way I wasn't for most of my life. Clear about what mattered. Clear about what I traded it for. I don't lie awake regretting. That would be too dramatic. And I'm too tired for drama. I just sit with it. I sit with the quiet phone and the Thursday card games and the photo my daughter sent, and I try to be honest with myself about the life I lived and the life I could have lived. They're not as different as you might think. I had good years. I had love, even if I didn't always know how to be inside it. I had a wife who was better than I deserved, and children who turned out fine despite everything. But I am in this house alone, and my son doesn't call much, and my daughter is very far away, and I understand why, and that understanding is the thing I carry. If this meant something to you, just sit with it for a while. You don't have to do anything with it right now. Just sit with it